Hello, welcome back to Monument Cycling. This is episode number 9 of the Monument Cycling podcast. Again, it's been a few weeks in the last episode. We're at the end of January now, very much into 2025, the new year, 1 month almost done. What have you been up to, Owen, for the last 4 weeks?
It's been busy. That's why we haven't been doing another podcast episode. So we've had the National Cyclo-Cross Championships. We've been planning a lot with the Cambridge Criterium. You've been in Mallorca. So lots going on, but hopefully we're going to get back into the swing of it and have podcasts going out mega regularly from now on. I think we said at some point that we would do a podcast every single day. I negotiated you down to every single week, and then we failed that instantly.
It's winter, it's ad hoc. If there's news, we'll make a podcast. We're not going to just make it for the sake of it. But today we've got lots of interesting stuff to talk about today. We're going to talk about tv.monumentcycling.com. A big thank you to Join Cycling. We now have a podcast sponsor for the next few episodes, which is excellent. Another big step for Monument Cycling. Like you said, the Nationals, lots of new national champions, very positive. And then unfortunately, there's been a bit of controversy around the world selection, which is next week, I believe. Is it not?
I think so, yeah. It is. It's a big controversy, they say. We'll get stuck into that one in a minute.
The British season opener, Portsdown Classic, is next week as well. Some are saying bigger than the Cyclo-Cross World Champs, but we'll have to just let other people decide. Strong start list there. We'll go through that race. There's a couple new teams that have popped up. Raptor Factory Racing and Defined cycling teams, both elite teams that have, I'm sure, aspirations to go Conti, as every elite team in the UK does for some reason. And Eurosport is gone. And now everyone will have to pay lots of money, or they can go to Tiz Cycling and watch cycling for free, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to do. And we're going to talk about why that is bad for the sport, especially in the UK. I think it's just a UK thing that this is affecting. Every country has its own complicated streaming situations that are all bad for their own reasons, but yeah, this kind of ruins UK's cycling. Owen, why should people give money to tv.monumentcycling.com?
Because Eurosport are going to charge you a small mortgage to do it nowadays. That's the best advert we could ever have hoped for is Eurosport showing their true colours and being like, money, money, money. But actually, Monument Cycling TV it's kind of the home of our extra content. You can pay a small monthly fee there, only I think £5 rather than £30. And that way you can get some extra content. You can help us directly to help us support the British scene. And it'll keep us going, keep us doing things like this and creating good content for you in the future.
Exactly. Enough waffling. Cyclo-Cross Nationals. How was it, Owen? You were there. You saw the racing. Was it muddy, dry, fast, slow? What was it like?
Absolutely freezing. So driving down there, I only live like 45 minutes an hour away from the Nationals this year. Driving down there was like a winter wonderland. Like, you've got the sunrise coming up. There's ice everywhere and frost on all the trees. It looked beautiful. It looked very hard for the riders, particularly like the juniors. Shout out to the juniors at the beginning of the day, because the course was just frozen solid. Like, I wouldn't want to crash on that. It's worse than crashing on tarmac. And then we had the elite women and the elite men, both incredible races. Zan Krees taking the elite women's race and Cameron Mason taking the elite men's race. But they weren't without their sort of to-ing and fro-ing. So it was a really, really good day of racing.
So we bigged up the Cam Mason versus Thomas Mean quite a lot before the race. Looking at the result sheet, it doesn't look like there was much of a battle. What happened between those two guys?
The result sheets don't tell the full story. So
there we go. I set you up there.
Yeah,
Owen,
man, that was incredible. Cam Mason and Thomas Mean were always going to be the two riders that were battling it out at the front, and they were battling it out. They were kind of neck and neck, taking chunks out of each other. And just when the nature of that course, I mentioned how slippy and icy it was. And as the ice thaws, it gets really kind of sticky and slippy and slidey. Cameron Mason attacked about the halfway point, and just going up there's a stack of maybe 40 steps. At the top of that, he's got maybe a 10-second gap. Thomas Mean is chasing. He seemed quite happy with it, but he just slips as they get to the top. And I think he kind of wrecks his bike a little bit. He jams his chain. He's a little bit worse for wear as well, slipping on the down on that. And he ends up abandoning. And at that point, honestly, it was a kind of a coronation for Cam Mason. Like there was no chance of anyone else catching him. And it's such a shame because it feels like we were robbed of like a really good battle.
Yeah, that's the vibe that I've got. It's a bit of a shame that obviously you just want, as a neutral fan of racing, I just want the most exciting racing possible. I'm not too fast who wins it necessarily. So that's a little bit sad, but obviously very, very happy for Cam Mason, his third national champs in a row. Obviously somewhat expected that race, but a result that perhaps wasn't expected was the women's elite race.
Yeah, that was massive. So when you've got like Kat Ferguson on the start line, she is, I mean, even in the pro ranks now, you have to watch out for her. She won like 2 or 3 road races in her first like stagiaire season. So we're looking at Kat Ferguson thinking, cool, she's going to take this. But Zan Kreis, man, I spoke to Zan before the race and you could see there's like a glint in the eye. There was something about the way she knew how she was going to ride this race. And she said, Kat's not been on the Cyclo-Cross bike as much this year. She's been on the road. She's going to be lacking a bit on the technical skills. She's maybe going to want to hold back a little bit and like hold back in terms of the risks. So if she can just put her under that pressure early on, she's going to struggle to close that gap. And Zan played it incredibly, incredibly well. Just like went out from the gun, got just a small gap and was willing to take those risks, willing to like push the limit to the extent that of the final lap, like the final turn, there were like 3 seconds in it. It was absolutely nuts. And Zan Kreis comes over the line first, Kat Ferguson, like sort of the standard, thank you very much, I came second. Salute. An amazing, amazing race. Like that was the battle that we wanted to see in the men's race, but played out in the women's race. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. Zan loved it as well. She was very happy, understandably.
Yeah. I've just read actually the interview with the British Conti with Denny with Zan, and she was like, even like halfway into the race, it took her that long to realise that okay, maybe I can actually win this.
Yeah,
which is always which would have been a very special feeling for her, I'm sure.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, incredible to beat Kat Ferguson. I'm sure, like, you know, 5, 6, even now, but 5, 6 years time, I'm sure we're going to see the results of Kat Ferguson.
Yeah,
it's going to be one of the top riders in the world.
But it shows the talent that's there. You know, like you think of Kat Ferguson being one of the top riders in the world, and then, well, she gets beaten in the National Cyclo-Cross Champs, and it shows that these riders aren't necessarily like so far ahead. Like given the opportunity, given the chance, on the day when things go right, we have riders that can take it to them, and then they just need these more opportunities to grow in themselves, to have the confidence. Like if Zan hadn't had the confidence to go out and smash it early, she wouldn't have won that race. But because she did, she took the win. And it's about building that confidence, building that skill set, and building that kind of physical capability that you need the opportunities to do it.
Exactly. Talking of opportunities, the national champs normally lead into the world champs for cyclocross, which happens next week. And a couple of weeks ago, they released the selection for the races. Mm-hmm. There's the usual names on there. I don't have it to hand, but I assume Cam Mason's on there.
Yeah, Cam Mason, Thomas Mean in the elites.
Kat Ferguson. Actually, no, Kat Ferguson. I can't even remember if Kat Ferguson's on there. But Imogen Wolf.
Zoe Backstead.
One of the Backsteads.
The under 23 women's is like stacked.
Yeah, so enough for a relay team, which is where the medals are kind of expected to come from, and the riders they're expected to medal, essentially. And it's pretty well known the criteria to get into Worlds, to be selected by the team that selects them, is very, very harsh, strict. Like that's not a surprise really, but the way that's played out this year is that Zan Kreis has been left out essentially, and there's no elite women being taken to Cyclo-Cross Worlds. There's also a few other categories. There's no under 23 men either that are being taken. So there are gaps kind of all over the place. I've talked to people that are on both sides of this, but this kind of blew up on social media very quickly and got very emotional very quickly, with people on both sides obviously taking it to heart, and it turned quite mean. So I think we need to be quite careful in how we talk about it. But essentially the point of view with one side is that, you know, she's the national champ, obviously she deserves to go. Why is she not going? Like, that's awful. And then the other side is, you know, we're balancing taking people that we think are going to do well. There's no point taking somebody that is going to come last and get lapped. And obviously reality is probably within the spectrum somewhere. I think my opinion at the moment is that I don't think we should have to make the difficult selection where we don't take an elite woman. Like somebody that I was chatting to yesterday would use the analogy that, you know, if the world champs were up a Mont Ventoux, British cycling wouldn't take Mark Cavendish to go and compete at the Worlds. And so I can see where that's come from, but I'm like, yeah, that's fair enough. But if Mark Cavendish was the best British climber in the country and had just won our national champs, no matter how badly he was going to do at Worlds, I still think we should take him just as a... Like, I think we're British cycling, we're one of the biggest cycling countries in the world. I think we should be represented at Worlds, no matter how poorly the best elite rider in that category might finish.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the difference is coming up.
I think that's a fair point as well, and you've hit on something really, really well there. We all know British cycling have sort of their funding woes right now. You know, they're not flush with cash, but they are, like it or not, one of the biggest in the world. I know for a fact that they're much bigger than USA cycling, for instance. And the USA cycling has to send everyone from the USA. To be honest, I imagine that riders like Zan would have paid for herself to go there. Like, if somebody had said, hey, we don't have the funding, but we'll select you if you can find your own funding, maybe the team would happily step up, maybe Zan would step up, maybe some personal sponsors would step up. I think somebody would have paid. And if the main issue is that the slot is there for the taking and British cycling can't find a way to justify spending on it because they don't think they'll do as well, well, maybe we should just offer the riders the opportunity to pay for it themselves. And then those riders will take it, and kind of going back to what I said earlier, they'll get that experience, they'll get the extra technical ability and also just an incredible experience. You went and competed in the World Championships for a professional sport.
Yeah, I think that's something that's probably very easy to think about in theory, but very hard to implement for British cycling to be like, anyone can go to Worlds, but you just pay for it yourself. Like, that creates a very
it's
awkward
just
precedent,
triathlon, isn't it?
I think. But I also don't think we should be sending, in this example, Zan Kreis, just for the sake of Zan Kreis to go and race the Worlds. I don't think that's why we should be sending her.
Mm.
Yes, I think there's obviously you have to get in by merit. I just think what kind of message does that send to, you know, some 10-year-old girl that's watching it on the TV, and you're like, oh, the national champ isn't even at the world champs.
Yeah.
This isn't even something that's attainable. Like, what's the point, kind of?
Yeah.
I just think it shouldn't happen. I don't really care. I don't really care whose fault it is directly. Like, I obviously don't put anything on the people in charge that are selecting the riders. I think it's just a victim of a very harsh selection criteria and very tight funding at the top of British sport that's not the Olympics.
Yeah.
I just don't think it should happen.
Yeah. You hit on something there that's really close to home. The idea of like a 10-year-old, maybe the under 10 under 12 national champion or whatever would be thinking, I want to get to that level. You know, they've been inspired by watching Zan racing, and then they see that they're, you know, either the national champion doesn't get to go to the world championships. For the Cambridge criterium, one of the lines that we had in our vision deck is like I remember this because it meant a lot to me, was the idea that like a 10-year-old kid can be out with her parents and she'll like look up in wonder and be inspired by the best riders in the country racing and go, I can do that. I want to do that and I can do that. And that's one of the reasons we had the women's race as like the headline race for the Cambridge Criterium. And it does just seem like an open goal that has been missed. When British cycling, it's like, are you a for-profit organisation who has to make every decision based on what's most profitable? Or are you a purpose organisation? And I think recently they've been trying to rebrand as more of a for-purpose organisation with social impact and social value. But you can't just say it. You have to actually walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And this is a prime example of an opportunity where they could have walked the walk, and it feels like maybe a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think we agree on that. Made our views pretty clear. I just want to call out, there was a lot of the kind of drama that I saw on social media. I didn't actually see it directly because I'm blocked by the person that posted it. Apparently there was a poll that was directly calling out a member of staff in the selection, I don't know, criteria or whatever, one of the people that decides with the team, calling that they should be fired from British cycling. Like, that is just abhorrent.
That's a bit
like,
much,
that is disgusting bullying that is just not needed. None of us that don't work for British cycling, or maybe even the riders, we don't understand the ins and outs of British cycling, cyclocross, and what goes in, why exactly we can't have riders. All we can kind of do is speculate and definitely not put blame on anyone directly because we don't know exactly what's going on.
At the end of the day, they're people doing jobs. Like, you know, individually,
airing it out on social media is not going to do anything other than just create people hurting each other. Like, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and it doesn't create a positive environment that we then want to build on. You know, those people, they need to want to help the sport as much as we want to help it. And if you're just getting abuse, you kind of go like, well, sod this.
Yeah, I think it obviously is a very important thing that we need to talk about, which is what we're doing. But talk about with the aim of actually trying to have a solution that works. Yeah,
I agree.
Talking about making positive change for the sport, what about making positive change for yourself in the sport?
Nice segue.
There we go. This is our first segue, first sponsor segue in Monument Cycling podcast history. Join Cycling is the ultimate platform for cyclists who want to train smarter and ride stronger. Join offers personalised coaching plans tailored to your goals. With their easy-to-use app, you'll get expert guidance and track your progress in real time. It's a coaching app, cycling coaching app. I've been using it for the last week or so at the back end of Mallorca, and I'm very impressed as somebody who has been coached before at a decent level, but has not been coached for a while. All the sessions look, as I'd expect them to look, but it just kind of gives me a little bit of accountability without the cost of a human coach and without the kind of involvement of a human coach. Seemed very trustworthy so far. Sessions are good. It told me to chill out and relax after Mallorca because I think I overtrained a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's not something I really thought about until I kind of checked the app and it was like, you're not training. And it says it quite directly that, you're not actually making yourself fitter or faster. You're slowing yourself down by riding too much. So
that's such a massive thing. Like I look back now and I'm like, I definitely was overtraining. I wasn't training optimally for a large chunk of my like elite racing period. And I wish I had someone to say like, dude, what are you doing? And in this case, if it's an AI that knows you, that sees you every single day, can say, what are you doing? This is not optimal. Or you're under training, you can do this, you've got a good day in you. Now I feel that would have been really helpful. And you're seeing it now, as you said, like on the back end of a kind of training camp, training holiday in Mallorca. So yeah, it's good to...
Exactly.
Good
it's
to kind of
very good for us that we're very busy, but it's not just that we're busy, it's that our schedules are very flexible and move around a lot. So, if suddenly you've got Thursday, Friday are free because meetings have been cancelled, or suddenly Thursday, Friday are packed full, you can change that and Join will change your plan around that and around your availability instantly, which is very, very good. So obviously I've been using it for a couple of weeks and I've been impressed. You obviously have not been using it because you don't ride your bike. So
I know that you
This-
want me to get on like a fat to fit.
Yeah.
That's a fat to fit. Look at me.
You're not unfit to fit, maybe.
Unfit to fit.
So yeah, this week you haven't used it. Maybe by next week we can give you you can do the read and you can give an update of how.
Sounds
Join
like a
Cycling
plan,
is.
man.
But yeah, thank you, Join Cycling. Yippee. For making the podcast sustainable. Portsdown Classic, the new race that popped up after Perfs disappeared a couple of years ago, after Mick Waite retired the race, is the kind of classic season opener in the UK. NatB has been going since the 60s, where Perfs was, before Portsdown Classic has popped up on the Portsdown Hill circuit. Really interesting, kind of unique race. One reason for that is that it's in early February, so it's normally freezing cold and rainy and windy and makes it miserable. The other reason is it's a really short race. It's like 45 miles. I don't know, what's that, 78 kilometres, 76 kilometres. And it attracts normally a really strong start list. Kind of the big UK teams kind of want to stretch their legs, see what they're feeling like after training camps. We've had the start list. We don't really have any big UK teams at the moment, to be honest. Like we talked about a few months ago, St. Piran, no, not Trinity necessarily, but teams like St. Piran and St. Piran leaving has left a power void, and we don't know exactly how that's going to be filled. So, what do you think of the start list for the Portsdown Classic at the moment?
I like it. We've mentioned before about the UCI teams not being on the scene this year, and that leaves it open, which means there's good racing. But looking at this, I spy with my little eye something beginning with Decathlon AG2R Le Mondial under-19 team. Did you see that as well?
Yeah, I don't actually know who that is, but obviously we had it last year as well with Cormac, who's actually now retired, I think, riding for the Quickstep junior team.
Yeah. Do you think that that's going to throw a cat amongst the pigeons? He'll be so marked just in that kit. Like
that tends to be these sort of riders that are rising up. Obviously, a lot of potential. They're younger than all the other riders they're racing against that race like this, but they're not necessarily stronger. They're probably at an equal strength. They've just got more potential, a good setup. They're still learning, and they've got a pro kit. They've got the same kit as Remco on, not Remco. I don't know, Ben O'Connor. The Decathlon. They're just going to be marked like that because obviously it's very recognisable. So it makes it very, very difficult for them to do well in a race like this. But I'm sure he's very strong. What's his name?
Gus Dutton. I want to find out. I'm going to find Gus on Instagram because there's Gus Dutton and there's Isaac Dutton and there's Sydney Dutton. Are all three of those related?
Okay, Gus is 16. He was born in 2008.
That's not no.
2008. I was in school. I was almost in primary school.
That is impossible.
I was in primary school.
That is impossible, man. I'm 1992. That's existential crisis right now.
You are old. So he doesn't have anything on pro. Obviously, he doesn't have anything in pro cycling stats because he's a child.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's very much in a learning process, I would imagine. But Decathlon, they have very, very good kind of under-19 structure. So I'm sure he'll be there for a few years. I can't remember any of the riders off the top of my head, but yeah, they kind of pump out talent.
Yeah.
Quite regularly.
There's two of them there. There's Evander Wishart or Weishart, I'm not sure how to pronounce the surname, but also on the Decathlon AG2 under-19 team. So I'll tell you on a slightly positive note, that's brilliant. Like to show that we've got these riders coming through who are good enough to be on Decathlon's feeder squad. Like I'm pretty happy about that. And even if they're just learning at this sort of racing, because you've got some guys like you've got the Raptor Factory Racing team. They've got some really strong riders, and you can imagine going up against. I wonder if Dylan Hicks is riding. Let's have a look.
Yeah, I mean, as much as this kind of early season race is a good fun, it's a really good event, it's a really good race to watch. It's not necessarily an amazing indicator of how somebody's going to go in the season. There tends to be a little bit of a curse that whoever wins doesn't really do much for the rest of the year. because it's such a weird thing to peak for the start of February. That if you're having a really sensible year, you don't really want to be going that well in early February.
Yeah. I remember a race, the Severn Bridge Road race that I did a long time ago. That's maybe first week of March, and one of the best riders in the country turned up to race that. It was a guy called Marcin Bielobłocki, who he ended up riding the Giro. He ended up riding the Worlds. I think he's a top 10 in the Worlds TT.
Ex-Perfs winner,
yeah,
2013.
He was an incredibly strong rider, but I'm pretty sure he turned up having got back from a flight from a training camp at like 3 a.m. And like was still in all of his sort of winter training gear. It was basically a winter training ride, and he just at some point decided, cool, I'm going to go off and ride Sweet Spot now. And he demolished it. But it's like he demolished the race by not ever going above zone 3. You know, that's the kind of race that you get, isn't it? Some people will be there just to sit in the bunch and have a fun day out while training.
Yeah, you'll have people that are absolutely pinging, like Marcin probably was from a training camp that had been lucky enough to sit in Spain for a few weeks in Calpe. That might do quite well, or they might be really tired from that training camp. So it's like, you know, who knows? But teams that look quite strong on that list, Foran do very well and have done, kind of slowly getting better and better every year. And they've picked up some new riders, so they're going to do very well, I think. In fact, I'm going to pick them to win Foran. One of the riders, probably Dom Jackson. I know Tobias is going quite well at the moment, so he's got support. Primera, probably not quite as many riders I thought they were going to enter.
Yeah,
enough to.
I'll be really interested to see how Rowan Baker's going. He won the East Cleveland Classic this time of year, last year, which is like an April race, first national series. He won that with like an impressive display of strength by just riding off a bit like I said Marcin did. He just rode off halfway through the race. Will he have the form here to do that again? Like, is he building up in much the same way? Is this the way his training is, that he builds up at the beginning of the year and he just has that strength by this time of the season? But there's a lot of people who are just that one step below him, but they're maybe going to be absolutely pinging. They're going to be like really G'd up for it, whereas his mind's going to be on another goal later in the year. I don't know if that dynamic plays out in this race.
Who knows? Well, we'll find out soon enough. It's on the 9th of February. Everyone go down and check it out if you live within, I don't know, 200-mile radius. Go and drive down and watch it.
200 miles.
So, talking about Rowan Baker, he's been out training with his team, or some of his team, I don't know if the whole team are out there, in Calpe, in their new Rule 28 kit, racing for the new Raptor factory racing team. This will be their first outing as a team. Probably the first time we see the new kit, new setup. I think Raptor's going to be quite a big thing in the scene in a couple of years' time. Well, maybe even instantly, right now. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they do. We haven't actually talked about Raptor on the podcast so far, but it's kind of developed over the last couple of weeks. It's a new team set up by the guys that own, obviously, Raptor. That's what factory racing team means. Who are the guys that own the clubhouse over in Putney in London, the cafe down there. They've got some really good support behind them. They've signed the right riders, I think, over in London. They've got good people behind the scenes supporting it, people that know what they're doing. Yeah, I think it's just going to be a very good setup. I think they kind of accelerated what they were trying to do after the news of St. Piran disappearing, and they were like, okay, like I was talking about months ago, there's a gap now kind of in the market, in the domestic market. There's lots of riders that are kind of available, good riders. Let's kind of try and fill that gap with a really strong, positive team. And I think they're going about it in the right way so far. So hopefully that converts to racing results.
Do you think Raptor Factory Racing is going to kind of pick up where Ribble Rebellion left off? Or, you've been speaking a bit with them. What's their goal for the year? Do they have different goals? Do they have a specific race series?
No. I don't think it's anything like Ribble Rebellion. I think that was kind of its own thing that didn't work and I don't think was going to work. Obviously, they got this... I get what you mean with it's kind of like factory racing where it's the bike brand own team, but apart from it being a bike brand that's sponsoring a race team, no, it's completely different. Rule Brilliant was like trying to be a global thing that was ripping up the rule book and doing everything their own way, and it didn't work. I think Raptor is kind of more of a traditional elite racing team in the UK, but with people that are kind of invested in making it modern and sustainable.
Yeah.
Just changing a few different things that make it, a little bit more sustainable. Which is quite exciting. They something I don't really like from teams at this size is that they want to be kind of Conti within 2 years or whatever and racing the Tour of Britain in 2 years. I can understand the attraction of that from bringing on support and sponsors. That's what most sponsors are going to want to be involved in, is Tour of Britain, those big races. I just don't think it's sustainable to have that short-term goal. I think it would be far better for both the team and the scene to, build it up over 5 years, be really, really strong and sustainable over that 5 years as an elite team or whatever elite team is in 5 years' time, and then try and kind of push up to that next level. I think rushing there is kind of, maybe it works, but it also, there's just a huge chance that it just blows up and disappears, and then suddenly you've got no team again, and it's back at square one. And another team pops up and rushes all the way to Conti, blows up, and there's nothing.
Do you think it's almost like running a business? So jumping to Conti is like, can we, you start your business and instantly you want to jump up to £500,000 revenue without working out how you make it profitable when you're at 500, it's well and good having 500 grand revenue.
Well,
but
I assume so, but I have absolutely I don't know anything about running a business. That's not a very helpful analogy there.
I'm asking you, hoping for some like Jeff Bezos style insight.
Yeah,
here.
actually, let me just take out of my brain there that example of me growing a £500 million business.
I think that is the case though, where somebody who doesn't run a £500 million business.
Well, I'll give you, put it in like a cycling analogy.
Yeah.
It's like 16-year-old Gus being like, okay, I want to ride the Tour de France in 2 years.
Yeah.
And maybe luckily he gets to the Tour de France, rides the Tour de France, realises that it's way out of his league, gets absolutely demolished, and never rides his bike again.
Yeah.
Like that's obviously not the sustainable path of progression. You want to slowly step up, making sure you're strong and stable.
Strong, it's all right, Theresa May. the way a lot of teams have done that in the UK, like I think that's it's like a chronic issue with the UK, and I don't know if it happens in other countries. I'd love to know if it does, but we need to step back in the UK and realise that it's not all about going UCI. Like you can build a sustainable team that lasts 20, 30 years here, and you can help a lot of people, and you can build up a brand. And people like Alec Briggs is a great example with what he's built with Techers. Like Techers stands there on its own. It's not a UCI team. It's not even an elite development team, part of the national series. It is its own thing, but sponsors want to be a part of it, and he gets the budget to help lots of riders and do all the races that they want to do, have racing abroad, just do it on their own terms sustainably. And it's built up literally from Alec to being a team that everyone wants to be involved in, everyone wants to follow. So that's a great sort of model.
I think that is a good... I think Techers is sustainable, and I think that is a good kind of case study in how to do it correctly. If I was doing it, I'd probably choose it to be less Alec Briggs centred. You kind of want it to be more diversified. Yeah, maybe. Which I think it is doing. Maybe not as strongly as maybe it could be, but Rob Scott was a great signing this year. Obviously, he got a lot of return for the team on a performance basis. Maybe they're trying to turn it into more of a actual race team, but yeah, positive movements, more positive movements in the scene. Defined team.
I don't know anything about Defined Cycling. Tell me about it.
Okay, well, nobody really knows much about it. It's a new team set up by Matt Witts, who's based over in, I don't know, Bath, Bristol, somewhere. He's been on a few elite teams, been a pretty good rider over the past kind of 5 years, hasn't done much over the last couple of years. But he set it up, he got in a bit of heat on LinkedIn because he made a post basically calling out every other team for being crap and that nobody does it correctly and he's going to do it correctly. And I think he got rightly called out in the comments by people that are quite experienced, being like, there are reasons why teams might not do it this way or whatever. But essentially, it's a new team that is going to copy, well, not necessarily, copy sounds a bit negative, but it's going to use the playbook of Tour de Tietma. You know, that team that what's his name? Bols?
Baz.
Yeah. Set up a couple of years ago. That's now obviously doing extremely well. So kind of content, lots of video, photos, fun, kind of engaged team, very colourful. That's kind of built around the content and making a sustainable team. Maybe before the actual race results, which I think you might have to do as a team nowadays. But it's been pretty quiet since then. So I sent him I asked him what the latest was, because there's no actual content yet on this content team. But it does actually sound like it's progressing quite well. They've got 9 male riders. They're going to focus on the National Criterium and Road Series, UCI gravel events, Cyclo-Classic, and foreign races when they can. Basically the most interesting stuff in the UK. And they're going to Calpe soon. Yeah, in February.
Might start getting
start racing in March.
Start getting some content then, hopefully.
Exactly. Yeah. I wish them the best. I think it's what the scene needs. That is the mindset that it needs. Whether or not it can be executed well, you know, who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I hope they do. Yeah. And I hope it gives, if it is successful, it kind of gives an example to other teams. It's like, okay, you know, this is actually possible. Let's make it happen. And then suddenly you've got 20 teams that are all doing the same thing. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. I wish them the best of luck. And if you want a brilliant segue now, they want to be like Tour de Tietma, Unibet Rockets now, who have just announced that they are racing their first ever monument, Paris-Roubaix. And if you're a big fan of the team, you might want to watch that. Where are we going to watch it, Harry?
Well, you're not going to watch it on Eurosport anymore. The kind of golden age of watching cycling in the UK is very much dead. Like we talk about, you know, British cycling, domestic road cycling is, you know, all the teams are going, is it dead, are we, whatever. Watching it, at least World Tour racing, is definitely dead. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
So I don't know, a year ago we had GCN Plus, which was like £7 a month. You could buy for £20 a year. It was incredible. You could watch literally any race you could think of that was at a decent level, with live commentary, shows with like breakaway shows afterwards. It was amazing. The general consensus was like, this is a little bit too good to be true. They should probably raise the prices. Eventually it kind of went the other way, and Warner Brothers, I think, is the complete parent. There's lots of different parent companies here.
Yeah.
But Warner Brothers decided that GCN Racing was no longer, and just poof, vanished suddenly one day, which was devastating. And everything kind of moved to Eurosport Plus or Discovery Plus or something. It's all kind of under the same thing, but it was basically £7 a month again, and you got the similar sort of racing coverage, a little bit limited because it was included with all the other sports. That it was a little bit more difficult to navigate. So that's what we've been using this year, and now we suddenly got the news that in 1 month's time, it's going to be moved again and shifted into another group of companies called TNT Sport, and it's going to be £31 a month to watch the same cycling coverage that we were watching this year. £31 a month. I don't know about you, Owen. I'm not paying £31 a month to watch La Samin.
No. That is
First of all,
impossible.
Okay, I mean, why have they done this? I think I know why they've done this.
Money?
So, I mean, first of all, they want to make money.
Yeah.
Obviously, they want to just increase the prices so we pay more. That's, you know, not rocket science. But I think they just don't care about cycling. I just don't think they realise.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, what if we lose 80% of our cycling viewership? Whatever. The other 20% will go and pay the £20, the £30 a month, and they can watch the other sports as well.
Yeah.
I think it's just I think it's an intention. I don't think it's unintentional. I think it's an intentional. They just don't matter. There's just not enough of them.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Kind of matter.
Because
what? I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah.
What impact is that going to have on cycling in the UK?
I think it's going to kill it. I hope it doesn't, but I think this is the death knell. The canary in the coal mine was GCN originally being sold to Eurosport, Discovery, Warner Brothers. And this is the moment where, you know, where maybe it ends. Because you've gone from having this combined with ITV4 losing the rights for free to air, means that the biggest event of the entire cycling calendar is now not just not free to view, it's £31 a month. And that, like, maybe there is a business model where they think all we want is people to pay £30 once in the year for the Tour de France. There's like maybe there's no value in anything except the Tour, and they just go, we just want people to pay £30 once. And they can't really make it a pay-per-view in the same way that you would with like Mike Tyson versus Logan Paul. So they say, well, it's just going to be £30 for that month, isn't it? And that's their model. But I don't doubt it will make sense for their like baseline figures. I do not doubt that. These are smart people. They know what they're doing, I hope. And I'm sure they've run the numbers and they say this will either make us more profit, it will make no difference to our profit, or maybe, as you said, we simply don't care and we want to shift everything to TNT Sports because there's value in us doing that. But that means that an entire sport could just be a sort of like unintended casualty of a entertainment giant just like rejigging its stuff, which blows my mind. And that just shows how cycling as an entire sport needs to get its act together, because otherwise you're at the whims of just one entertainment giant. Seems crazy to me.
Yeah, it's just part of this whole kind of global shift of moving, 10, 15 years ago, streaming services were beginning and it was like, this is insane. Netflix is £2, whatever, a month. And suddenly I've got every single movie that's ever existed. This is incredible. And it's obviously everyone's seen the shift over the last decade or so that it's like, there's like 20 different streaming services. They all cost £10, £20 a month. And now it's the same price as, a Sky TV package was before.
Yeah.
We've just gone back to where we were.
It's cable again. That's what it is. We've gone streaming disrupts cable. Streaming companies get so big that they buy all the other streaming companies and recreate cable.
Well, it's not even the streaming companies; it's the cable companies.
The cable companies have
just
come back.
Bought the streaming companies, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, the impact on UK cycling is that less people are going to watch it. Less people watching cycling means less people cycling themselves, which means less people racing, and all the other snowball effects of that.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is awful, terrible. If you want to watch cycling, go and pirate it. Or go to Monument Cycling.
We don't have the Tour de France, though. We don't have the Tour de France.
No.
And that's Harry's viewpoint on the pirating, not Monument Cycling's. But I think that is what's going to happen. I remember there's a Twitch streamer called Pirate Software, who you may have seen if you're perennially online like me.
I've not.
And
no.
he runs his small game development company. And there's a great little bit where he talks about piracy of his games in Brazil. He was really struggling from piracy until he looked at the purchasing parity in Brazil versus other parts of the country, the other parts of the world. And basically, his game was too expensive for people to buy in Brazil, but they wanted to buy the game and wanted to pay for it. So when he adjusted the price on a local basis, so that people in Brazil could afford it in the same way that you and I could afford it, they started turning Brazil into one of their biggest markets of people who wanted to pay to buy the game. And that's what you see.
It's a very simple. Anyone that's annoyed, if you're Warner Brothers and you're annoyed that everyone's pirating your thing and not paying your £30 a month, it's an incredibly easy thing to fix. You can completely eradicate pirating by just making a product that's worth the price and selling it. I'm sure when GCN Racing was about, the amount of pirating of cycling races was probably almost zero.
Yeah, because in the worst case,
it's worth it. Everyone can afford it. It's worth it. It's easier than pirating.
Yeah,
that's it. Obviously that's tongue in cheek. Please don't. I don't know. You can pirate something if you want. Just be careful. don't get caught. I guess. I don't know. What else should I? Don't get a virus on your computer.
Yeah, watch out.
that is what's going to happen. The
Yeah.
people that really want to watch races that can't afford £30 a month, which is basically everyone. There aren't many people that can afford to pay £30 a month to watch bike races, or are willing to. Are just going to pirate it, and then suddenly they don't get any money.
Yeah.
The very easy solution to this is to just split it in the same way that you can just pay for, I don't know, like Sky Sports F1 because you only watch F1 and it's cheaper than the whole Sky Sports package. It's just to have TNT cycling.
Yep.
And it'd be like, it's on the same platform, you just have access to the cycling and it's £10 a month.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all they have to do. And nobody really talks about it.
Yeah, nobody cares. That would be it. It seems like such a simple idea, and that's why I wonder that there must be some brilliant monetary reason behind the scenes for it. And I'm sure their stock price is going to reflect that, and David Zaslav, the owner of WBD, is going to be like, oh yeah, I'll get another yacht. I'm sure that's probably going to happen. And if it does, great, good for them. But we're going to be the sort of friendly fire or the unintended casualty that gets hit in the meantime.
Exactly. Oh well, watch tv.monumentcycling.com
Yep.
for your British cycling coverage. With that is everything for our kind of early episode. We're recording another episode tomorrow with Rule 28, the owner of Rule 28, which is going to be very exciting. We're going to talk about Rule 28's involvement with Raptor factory racing and the general vibe of domestic racing over the last kind of 10, 15 years and how it's shifted, and obviously the effect of aero and equipment and how that all plays into it, and what he kind of sees as the sustainable model for the next few years.
Looking forward to it.
So this will come out on Friday. The Rule 28 episode will come out on Sunday.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Stay tuned.
And thank you, Join Cycling. As I mentioned earlier, if you click the link in the description, you will get 30 days free on Join Cycling. So you can train for 30 days with an artificial coach telling you what to do, get stronger, and then pay for it.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Goodbye.
Bye.